All right, we are go for launch.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 10th, 2021 Henrietta Town Board meeting. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley.
Here.
Councilmember Stafford.
Here.
Councilmember Safranek.
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. After Monday, I get nervous every time now. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from February 24th, 2021.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Before I do, Millie, could I have you turn your microphone on?
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Councilmember Barley.
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. For residents who are participating virtually and wish to speak during tonight's meeting, will be asked to do so through Zoom by one of two means. If you are using the Zoom on your computer or with an app, please select the raise hand control. Or if you are called into Zoom, press *9. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will enable you to talk. If you are watching this meeting on YouTube and wish to respond, please visit www.henrietta.org/wishyouwerehere for detailed instructions on how to connect on Zoom. For the deaf or hard of hearing, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. For everyone else, please reserve the Q&A feature for the deaf and hard of hearing. First up, we have a public hearing to consider a petition for the establishment of extension number 24 to the Henrietta Drainage District. Proposed extension would add the Forest View subdivision. Chris, I assume you're the one putting forth the petition, is that correct? Or is it the developer?
It's the developer. Well, we're doing it on behalf of the developer, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. So would you be the one to present? Or is the developer presenting? Or did I throw you?
Well, if you like, I can present. I'm sorry. So basically tonight, it's obviously the public hearing for the establishment of the drainage district.
I will note that the next two, there is also a petition for the establishment of extension number 223 to the Henrietta Sewer District number 1, and the proposed establishment of extension number 170 to the Henrietta Water District number 1. All three of these would be for the same Forest View subdivision. So whereas we will conduct them in sequence, I have no problem with people discussing the aspects of all three at any of them. Well, I shouldn't say that at this first one. If we approve the establishment of the drainage district, it's a little late to then discuss it at the subsequent ones. So,
Now I'd like to add, Mr. Supervisor, these are pretty straightforward. We do these for all new subdivisions. If there isn't a, drainage district or a water district or a sanitary sewer district, this subdivision, of course, needs all three.
and in all three cases, the developer is building all of the infrastructure according to town code, and we'll be submitting that both for inspection and then eventually for dedication to the town. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Supervisor.
Is there anybody in the public who has any questions? Or would like to make a comment regarding this? Anybody on the board?
Just, the developer's not here tonight?
No, Councilman Stafford, typically with these type of developments, they're not required to be here. Normally, the town presents these.
Yeah, that's why I was pretty sure it was Chris who presented them, but I just wanted to.
I've never, okay. Didn't recall.
Yeah, again, these are fairly routine. It's effectively when you approve the plans, it's included in there. The one thing I will note, again, we'll get to that one in a moment, but I'll just bring it up now. For the sewer district, one of the things that we are taking a look at is the houses to the west. The folks who live there essentially created, and it just happens to be coincidence that it lines up with the number of the water district, but they created extension number 170 to the Henrietta Sewer District number 1 to install a pump and force main as well as sewer mains to collect all the sewer from the houses in that development. This development is connecting to that infrastructure. It seems to me that it's only fair that there is still some number of years left on the bond costs for that infrastructure. We have separated out the sewer mains costs from the pump station and force main. Since the sewers from Forest View will be draining and essentially being pumped out through that pump station and through the force main, it is my belief that when we create extension number 223, that they would bear a proportionate cost of the remaining debt service on that pump station. Since, again, without that pump station, this sewer couldn't happen. So that's something that I would like to see the town do all the time going forward. To me, it's not fair that those people who first put the pump station in should bear all the subsequent cost. We're not looking to go backwards in time, but basically for I don't remember exactly how many years are left on the bond. Instead of that bond, cost of that bond being broken up just over sewer extension 170, it would be broken up over sewer extension 170, sewer extension number 223, and there's actually a third sewer extension which currently has not been paying a share, even though they also feed into that same pump station. So that would lower the costs per house to each of the homes that are currently paying for that pump station. And again, spread across all of the homes, it should be a fairly small charge per home. I think between the two additional extensions, it about doubles it, which means the portion of the cost attributed to the pump station, the force main, would be cut in half for all the current homes. So the only question we had is, when creating these, is there a requirement when creating that you have to indicate what the charge is, or just that there is intended to be a charge? Do you know that answer, Don?
Yeah, I remember you asked that now. Typically, you have a formula in there. That's typically how these are established. And then you have an expected typical cost in the map plan report establishing the district. So you should have some idea of what the parent chargeback will be, so that you can come up with the expected costs.
Okay, so then, in my opinion, I am going to propose that when we get to the resolutions, that we are going to table the establishment of the sewer district, because we're going to have to we know how it's going to be formulated, because it'd be kept formulated the same way the other ones are. We know what the actual portion of the costs that are going to be broken out, but we actually haven't gone through and run the hard calculations to determine what that expected cost. So we can certainly do that,
Yeah.
but obviously we're not going to do it tonight.
Yeah,
So-
and I know that because the comptroller has thresholds where if the costs exceed a certain amount, you can run into problems because they don't want, I know we're not going to have that here, but they don't want sewer district costs to be.
Exorbitant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I said, we know it's below the threshold because it's going to be less than what it currently is in one that was previously approved. So, and again, if you look at it, it's not quite half, but just to use it, half of the cost of those current homes, half is being paid for their sewer mains, the other half is being paid for the pump station and force main. So one half of that is going to be split. So essentially they'll save about 25%. And that savings essentially is being picked up by these other homes. So my recollection on the value, boy, I think it's under $50 a home, but that's in no way definitive. It gets confusing because some of the homes, of course, the first one I looked at, it was a really big charge until I realized it was what I was looking at was a 4-unit apartment building. So it, needless to say, carried a bigger share of the sewer main and force main pump because the formula is based off of 3 factors. One factor is ad valorem, in other words, the assessed value of all the properties in the district. The second one is basically a unit count. And then the third one, I'll have to check. There's a couple different, sometimes it's acreage of the lot, sometimes it's the street frontage of the lot. There's a couple different ways it's done. We would mirror the way it was done for the current 170. And so that's how they apportion it. So anyway, that's where we'll get to.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's going to be the only question I had on that was that calculation. But it brings another question to mind that I don't think I ever got answered after this got approved. Did the other owners, was it ever extended to them to take that land? Yes or no, or?
It was, so there was a couple of them were waiting to try to find out what the assessment would be. Unfortunately, because the town of Henrietta currently is without an assessor, we weren't able to get that number to them. I'd reached out to a number of appraisal firms. None of them would give me an answer. So I basically just pointed them to the Monroe County. They have a portal into the tax property information and said, you can do your own math. You can see what you're paying on the tax. They break out, in that portal, they break out the total assessed value, and separately they break out the land value. So I said, you can do your own calculation. I gave them part of the reasons it's not so straightforward, as someone pointed out, the big value for the land is that it's a buildable site. If it's a 0.3 acre lot or a 0.5 acre lot, from a value of the home, it's not a huge difference because it's generally the same size of the house. Now, again, I'm saying this as best I can translate from people who actually do this for a living. I am not an assessor. I don't even play one on TV. So, but their point is it's not simple, straightforward, but they could at least get a ballpark estimate by doing their own calculation and figuring that out.
So even if they didn't sign on originally, they still
have that opportunity to do so. So yes, so that is being, basically what's happened is those lots on that portion, they've not been working on those because we need to finalize where the lot lines are. And it sounded like Chris was going to chime in.
Yeah, I was going to just add, Mr. Supervisor, that yes, there is certainly still time for those residents. I mean, out of the 3 of the 4 residents that are affected by this, 3 have indicated that they're interested. We just have to sit down with the developer and the potential owners to see if they are still interested, and then to do another survey map that would show the property going to them.
So To
Thank you,
answer-
Mr. Martin.
Right, so that is committed, and, if they do that, and we still, because that is essentially was a condition of the special, or I don't know if it was a special use permit, but of the approval of this project, that if for some reason the developer reneges on that process, we can basically say, we're going to withhold a future certificates of occupancy until you complete this requirement. So the only reason it's been delayed is, again, because there were a couple things up in the air.
Right.
It was paused while, obviously, the developer didn't want to give over land while the lawsuit was going on, because if they lost the lawsuit and weren't able to do the development, they weren't going to give a gift to the people who blocked them from doing it. So understandably, it waited till that was done. And then, like I said, there was some further delay because during that time, of course, our town assessor took a job as the director of real property in Wyoming County, which is great for her, bad for us.
Real bad for us.
So it's just one of these confluence of
All right,
things.
thanks for that answer.
Yep. Any other questions? Hearing no objection, then I will, and any reason not to close all three? I will close I guess I didn't technically open the other two yet, but. Yeah, I
Ron,
could.
can you turn your microphone on?
So he asked if we could keep the sewer one open. So I'll do them one at a time. So hearing no objections, I am closing the public hearing to consider a petition for the establishment of extension number 24 to the Henrietta Drainage District. Proposed extension would add the Forest View subdivision. I am proposing that, unless there is objection, we will keep the public hearing open to consider petition for the establishment of extension number 223 to Henrietta Sewer District Number 1. Proposed extension would add the Forest View subdivision. The hearing will remain open until we are able to determine again, we'll document the way the costs will be determined, and we will provide an initial estimate of what those costs would be. And then I propose that we, unless there is objection, I propose that we close the public hearing to consider petition for the establishment of extension number 170 to the Henrietta Water District Number 1. Proposed extension would add the Forest View subdivision. Hearing no objection, the public hearing is closed. What's that?
Just wondered if you need a second on any of those.
I was doing them as without
Second.
objection. Fine.
Without objection. Okay.
Rob seconded them if you need a second. Okay, next up, we have public hearing to consider designating 5582 West Henrietta Road as a historic site. So just to give a full update on that, we've talked about this at the workshop, but the property owner had put in the application, and then some situations changed and they were considering withdrawing the application. We talked to them about instead that we move forward with the designation, but make it contingent upon their final authorization. They would essentially have 1 year to provide that final authorization. If they did not, after 1 year, the approval would expire. The conditional approval would expire. I don't know, do we have anybody from the Historic Site Committee on? All right. Did you want to talk at all about why you think this is a great property to add to the historic district? Absolutely. Assuming that you believe it should be.
Tyler Keller, 1063 Erie Station Road, and a member of the Historic Site Committee. This is a great cobblestone house is one of the examples that we have in the town, one of many, but this is probably one of the more prominent ones. Great historical value to this that served in the Underground Railroad, and is part of the West Hamlet, or the West Henrietta Hamlet. It would be a great asset to have on the registry. I am aware that the owner is very generous with showcasing the house to many organizations that are interested in going through and knowing the history about it. And I believe this would be a great asset for the historical site committee to be able to showcase as part of the West Henrietta Hamlet and the history of Henrietta.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody from the public wish to chime in? And I don't know if Mr. Congdon, property owner, is online, wishes to comment at all. I don't know that we necessarily invited, not that we didn't invite him, but I don't know that he felt the need to be here since, again, it was conditional.
Yeah, we don't have him online.
Okay. For those who don't remember, he was here at an earlier public hearing with regards to the Delphi project and was talking about the historic significance and all the work he's put into preserving this house and keeping it up. And, you know, he's very concerned about the potential impact from the Delphi project, which is part of what started this effort to get this on the historic rolls, historic registry. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, barring any objection, I'll be proposed to close the public hearing to consider designating 5582 West Henrietta Road as a historic site. Hearing no objections, hearing closed. Finally, we have a public hearing to consider amending special permit 2020-007 for the White Arrow Service Station and Mini Mart, formerly Joe Legno's, to allow a revision to the footprint to include an 18 by 38 foot cooler. Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Nice to see you. I'm smiling under here. I was here a year ago. I think this was my first meeting during this whole COVID era. So I am back a year later.
Please
on
introduce
this
yourself.
application. Sure. My name is Betsy Brugg. I'm with Woods-Oviatt Gilman. Rod Prosser, our project engineer, is here. And yes, I was here just about a year ago. And the board granted a special use permit to allow the existing Legno station, which at that time did not have operating, gas pumps, had some service bays and had a whole lot of cars stored there. I think they were doing some automobile sales. And since then, my client has closed on the property. They're working on the property. They've been cleaning up the property. And we're back because they need to add a cooler on the building. It's not something that was, they realized they were going to need at this point. Originally, when they came in with the proposal, when I got involved, they had actually already been to the zoning board and the use had already been turned down once. We came back because part of the code had been missed, whatever, came back, got the use approved while it was still owned by the prior owner. Now that the current owner is in there working, really getting into the nitty gritty of the building, what they discovered is they really don't have a place to put a cooler in the building without really losing all of their floor space. The building has it has a chimney after they looked at where the power is located in the building, having to reconfigure bathrooms, having to create a sales area. With all the limitations, they find that they need to put the cooler on the back of the building. Fortunately, it will not be visible to anyone, will not impact the appearance of the building from the road. The land behind here is vacant land, it's wooded, nobody's gonna see it. They are planning to side it to kind of match the building. And the access to the cooler will be through the building. They're just gonna cut through the wall and go back there. I think it just contributes to the overall improvements. This building, so the applicant is actually White Arrow, and they're actually, they purchased the station for a particular gentleman who operates a couple service stations in the Rochester area. He's not a big company. He's not, one of the big national companies. Who has a professional team of designers and things. So he's in there. He's got an engineer. He's working on cleaning up contamination now, and he's trying to make this building viable. He's been working on this space and really needs the cooler. He needs it primarily for storage. He doesn't really have a place to store his deliveries, and this is a much needed area. The building itself, I think, is just under 2,000 square feet as it is. Just for perspective, a typical convenience store today is more like 32, sometimes 3,500 square feet in size. So it's significantly smaller. And with all the ADA compliance requirements, he would basically, if you look at the plan, which I don't know that you have it up, but if you look at it, you'll see that if you were to try to put the cooler inside the building, he'd lose all of the floor space. Given that he's got to have a bathroom, he's got to have a sales counter, and he needs a place to put his storage when he gets deliveries. When Pepsi comes around with all the cases of goods, he's got to have a place to put it. So that's basically the reason. And I think it's a pretty benign change. Nobody's going to see it. It's never going to impact anybody. It's tucked behind the building.
Right, to be clear, the reason it's back here, so originally the applicant, the previous owner had gone for a use variance, and that's what was denied. But then when they brought Woodsoviet on board, there is a section of town code that specifically understands the fact that service garages, gas stations, the cost to convert their use is high. And so you're going to run into these issues of, especially since this was a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so normally you can't expand or change that. It's especially problematic for this one because it was in a residential and R115 area. So the only thing that could really go there is a house. You'd have to have done all this environmental cleanup, and then to sell the lot for a house would be less than the cost of that environmental cleanup. And so a previous town board sometime past had put in section of code that allows us to issue a new special use permit to replace the old one. And we did that. The reason they're here is because in that special permit, one of the things we noted in our determination was that we liked the fact that it was using the same building. And we specifically mentioned the footprint. So whereas this is technically a violation of that, again, it wasn't exactly a condition, but it was one of the things we made a decision upon. We felt it was important to bring it back to the town board. Otherwise, normally it would just go to site plan. But because in that resolution, we specifically mentioned the fact that one of the things that helped our decision, there were a number of things that the property was going to be greatly cleaned up, which it has. If you haven't been by there, absolutely take a look. It looks significantly better than when all the cars were stored out there. That they're sprucing up the building itself, and we did mention that essentially that the building wasn't getting a lot bigger, and therefore, create more visual impact from the road or impact the neighbors. Whereas the footprint is getting bigger, as you can see on the image, the property behind the gas station is wetlands, not where the actual extension goes, but you can actually pretty much see where it switches to wetlands. And so there's no development back there. There are houses to the north, but the extension doesn't move in that direction. So, whereas I might think it's benign, it's a board decision. So we brought it back here.
I should add that this did require a trip back to the planning board for this modification to the site plan, and they did grant approval of I guess they were waivers of a couple of the, it's an pre-existing buffer, I believe, or no, excuse me, a pre-existing setback, and then a buffer, yeah. Because it's a pre-existing building, it already didn't comply.
Correct.
And in fact, the cooler doesn't really bring it closer. If you actually look at the measurements on the plan. But it does extend in that one corner of the building.
Because there's no loading in the back, that they're okay from the rear setback is my understanding of it. Does that sound correct, Craig?
That was what they said at the planning board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I have is that after all the trouble we went through to get this thing approved and we okayed it, the footprint was one thing, but the board was very disappointed to find out the guy was working there without the proper permit. And the work had to be stopped. So not only did they not do their homework for the footprint that was really vehemently spoken about, he did violate working on the building before having a permit, and that's really disappointing.
I was not aware of that. We'll pass that along for sure.
Yeah, they had a stop work order. So anyways, I'll start. First thing I want to say, great job cleaning the property up. That is phenomenal. I think, you know, all the neighbors, all the people who passed by noticed it. So it's a great job cleaning the property up. But I do have some, you know, why I looked into this when I saw it come back, and when I say I saw it come back, I predicted to a couple of my board members it would be coming back, because I didn't think you would be able to build a convenience store on 1,980 square feet. And I predicted it would come back, and here we are. And so with that being said, I looked into it a little bit more. During that meeting, you said they owned 8 other stores and 2 in the city. Are they the Shamrock and the My Way? Do you know?
Rod, do you know the names of the shops?
Yes, they are. I mean, what does,
There was please introduce yourself for the minutes.
Rod Prosser from Lakeside Engineering. Yes, he has the Valero in Lyle, and he has a Shamrock on Emerson Street.
okay, and I just, for clarity, when they say they own it, what do they own? Because they don't own the building and the liquor license isn't in their name. So what do they actually own
Well, I don't have specifics.
at that location? I mean, I'm just curious.
So I believe that White Arrow owns the station. They purchase it he's the operator. The way many of the franchises have like an ownership interest, I think, from the operator.
Okay. Who owns the building on East River Road?
I believe White Arrow owns that.
Oh, okay.
That's what they were saying. So that's why when you get the 2 different numbers, the 8 stations owned in the area, that's owned by White Arrow. The 2 in the city, those are owned by the operator. So the person who's going to be operating this, essentially the franchise operator, he currently operates 2 in the city, 2 other gas stations in the city, but the gas station itself is owned by White Arrow, who owns 8 in
Right,
the
and they
region.
supply his gas.
So they're a supplier, not a, okay.
Well, except it's like if you open up a McDonald's franchise,
Right.
Often the corporation owns the store. You've paid for the franchise. You're a part owner.
You run the business.
You run the business,
The business
but
is
the
right.
business is owned by, and the property is owned by the company, you know, the corporation. That's actually quite common.
Well, just so everybody's aware, the building at 3333 East Henrietta Road is not owned by White Arrow. Like,
Well, they typically will create an entity to own a
Right.
property. I mean, if you need the specific information, I
just asked-
certainly can
right,
get that.
I just asked.
I assume we would normally have to submit that type of information with the building permit. Am I
And-
correct?
It is with it, yes, it is part of the building permit.
I don't actually know the specifics, but it's not, it's a typical type of a,
But it's like, you know, as you look at, I'll use Apex, for example, right? They formed, I don't remember what the number is, but I'm going to call it 50 John Street LLC.
Right.
When they do these things, they typically form, because often it's a partnership between depending on if it's joint ownership, because like I said, sometimes it's a corporate store, in which case the corporation owns it entirely, and you'll see it under the name of the corporation. Sometimes it's a joint ownership between the corporation and the franchise operator, in which case they typically create an LLC specifically for that, of which some is owned by the corporation and some is owned by the franchise operator.
And I thought the town was aware of those kind of,
We are, I'm not personally, but again.
It's very commonly done.
It's commonly done, and
Okay.
that is made clear when you look at on the building permit. It does have a separate thing for the applicant and the owner of the property.
So Rod, are you the operator for this particular property?
No,
Ron's the engineer.
Engineer.
I'm the
Okay.
Rod is the engineer.
Mo Yassin is going to be the operator.
Come and introduce yourself.
Go ahead, Mo.
Good afternoon. My name is Muyad Yassin. I'm the owner of Shamrock and Valero on Lyle Avenue and Emerson. So if I have any question about East River, East River, White Arrow, they bought the building, and I'm going to buy it from them too down the road. But I don't have the money to buy the building. And White Arrow, they are the supplier of gas for my stations. I own the property in both places. I own the one at Valero, I own the one at Shamrock. And White Arrow is my supplier of the gas. And when we bought East River, I want to buy East River, but I don't have enough money to buy it. So White Arrow, they supply me with money to buy the building, and I'm going to pay him the money within the 15 years from the date we bought the building. So when I look at the building, Mr. Ligno, he don't allow us to investigate inside the building. He was worried about his worker to know that he's selling his place and they quitting him. So even Mr. Rad, he went there, he kicked him out from the parking lot to measure the building. I like the location. I like to approve myself, and my kids, they went to RIT and they love the place. They used to go to that area. And that's all about.
So effectively, it's, for lack of a better way to put it, lease to own, right? White Arrow owns it now, you're going to operate it and eventually purchase it from them.
Yes, I saw the place and I like the place when it was for sale. So when Mr. Lungo asked that much money, I don't have that much money to buy. I have 3 kids going to college.
Right.
And I don't have money to spare, to buy it. So Mr. Carr, the owner of White Arrow, he told me, if you like the building, I buy it, and with the time you pay me the money. And we agreed in that condition.
Great. That makes it much clearer. Thank you.
yeah, much clearer. Usually we don't see somebody coming back to put a 35% addition onto their building.
Actually, that's not true at all.
Okay.
We don't see it here.
Right.
Because it goes to the planning board they have to update their site plan. So we, the town board, doesn't see it. But I can point to a ton of them that I'm aware of, because again, we also see it when that happens, it comes across for the reassessment.
And I have more thing to say. I own other 2 property in Lyle Avenue. I own 1004 Lyle Avenue, and I own 586 Lyle Avenue. And 586, it was like a demolishing building. It was for demolishing, and I fixed it and came great, nice looking, the best looking place in Lyle Avenue. And everybody can Google it and see how it was before and how it is now,
Been there. Yeah, I've been there.
So like I said, it's unusual that it came back to the town board. And if we hadn't mentioned it in the special permit, it wouldn't have come back here. It would have only gone to the planning board, and once they had approval for a new site plan, it would have been done. That's the way it normally happens. But because this is a different case, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use that is expanding. And again, under normal conditions, that's not allowed. But in this section of town code does allow for that to happen for gas stations, service stations, things like that, as long as it's subject to the special use permit issued by the town board. And anytime it changes, they have to come and update it.
I would add that I think that the modification, while it adds square footage in the form of a cooler, it's not increasing sales area, it's not increasing traffic, it's actually decreasing probably the number of deliveries he needs to get by having storage. It's not adding to the intensity of the use, which, the special use permit is really about the use of the property. Special use permits, of course, carry a favorable legal presumption. And I think it's consistent with the spirit of the section of the code, which is to take these gas stations. I think he's spending a lot of money now cleaning up the contamination.
Yes, we have an issue with DEC right now that the land is contaminated and we work in it. And we don't know how much farther it goes. We dig on all the property line is contaminated and we're still working with DEC to see how far this contamination is going out. It's a huge mess there, It's not like, and even we were thinking to back up from the property because of how much bad the dirt behind the building is going even maybe farther than the borderline of the building.
I guess my point is, it's consistent with the spirit of the section of the code that recognizes that these old, beat up, obsolete gas stations, if you want to give them a viable chance to be repurposed, recognizing the amount of money it takes to clean up these sites, it's not like a big national company coming and picking, a spot with their national program that's all designed and, that's what they're going to do and they never really change it. This is somebody working with the existing conditions, trying to fix up and, give a new life to something that otherwise would be a vacant, eyesore, contaminated gas station site if somebody did not take it over.
One thing I noticed in the letter that Rod sent to the planning board, that it said it was a current. I was unable to show up for that meeting, but it said it was a current automobile service station, which is not true. It closed more than 6 months earlier than this letter was dated. So I just noticed. I noticed when we get this stuff that a lot of us just didn't seem to mix, and so.
So technically its most recent use was as a service station. When we updated the special use permit, it is no longer permissible to be a service station. So just for clarity's sake. So again, once that special permit was approved, that's 2020-007. Once that was approved, it replaced the previous special use permit, which was what allowed it to be a service station. So again, just per Councilman Stafford's point, going forward, it no longer is a service station. No longer could ever be a service station.
No, it's not going to be.
I understand that. He's just saying when you referred to it as currently a service station. It was the more accurately, it should have said previously a service station.
Have the tanks been removed yet?
The tank, we call the company from Pennsylvania. That's White Arrow Department. They came and we dig around the tanks and they came inspected and they say the tank, they are in good use. And the DEC, they came and they're fine with that.
Okay, good.
The only problem was with the tank, with Mr. Lingo, it was one wall. And the requirement is to be 2 walls. So you can have a 1 wall tank, but you have to buy insurance. The insurance for 1 wall is so expensive. So Mr. Ligno, he couldn't afford that. But White Arrow, they can buy the insurance for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that the tanks were bad, as you pointed out, that they're obsolete. So you either have to replace them or insure them.
For the
But
gas,
they do have to be inspected.
yes, for the gas issue, we work with the DEC, whatever DEC requirement, we are up to date with them and their requirements. like we are here, the requirements from you, we willing to do it, you know.
And my understanding is the contaminations were coming from the service garage effectively?
I think from the tanks, because the tanks, these being replaced.
So you think it was older tanks?
Yes,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's from the older tank, and because there's some work it being done there, and we found like a pile of dirt, and we don't know how old that dirt it was there. So the condition to buy that place, to pay that money for Mr. Ligno if the property is clean. And he said, you know, my property is clean. I never lost one drop of gas. So when we told him, okay, we have to check, we have to test the ground, and we see if it's, what we did in the parking lot in front of the tanks, and we found a small spot bed. So we asked the DEC to start cleaning that area, and the DEC say, and they came check the site, and they said, no, we need to dig behind the tank in the land. So we called the company again, and they came there, and we found the mess there is a huge mess, and behind of the building is going in that direction. So we dig all the way to the property of the line the line of the property, and it's still bad. So now we have to go back to the DEC, and we tell them, look what we found here, and what your proposal, what we should do next, you know. And that one is still in the process, you know. We just found out like a week ago.
But again, all of those conditions were pre-existing and you're effectively cleaning them up.
Yes, we invest in a lot of money to do that. And the company came just check the tank. It cost $18,000 for 1 day work.
And then with these new coolers, I just want to double check that I understood it correctly. They're not going to be loaded from the back. Everything's going through the front door, just like was mentioned.
Yes.
At the original, the March 28th or
Yes.
March 25th.
You know, I love not to have it, but you know, it's no way that you can function with that place without the walk-in cooler. It's no way going to be.
So I think there might have been a communication. So my understanding is
Yeah, access to the
they're
cooler is.
offloaded out of the front, but there is a side entrance that I can walk into the back of the coolers and put
Yeah.
the stuff on the rack
Yes,
from
sir.
inside the cooler.
Yes.
But the trucks aren't going to be loading.
No, the
into
trucks-
back.
No.
No pavement
no.
back there.
No.
They'll come in on I assume like on a dolly and roll
Yes,
right in.
even for security reason, you can't have a door, you know, outside door, and you don't know what's going to happen, you know. So,
Well, and from a site plan, there's no approval for rear loading.
Rear loading.
yes, there is no side door, outside door for the walk-in cooler.
And over to your other stores, I do notice and it was mentioned at the last meeting, so I'll bring it up at this one again. They said no frying or cooking.
No
At
frying.
your other stores, I know the one on Emerson has cooking in.
I have in Emerson.
Right.
The reason I have the kitchen in Emerson, when I bought the building, it was, you know, like an investment for me. I met the lady, she was working in the place, and she told me, Mo, if you want to do that, we used to do good breakfast there, you know. So I keep going with the same idea. But I'm not a food businessman, you know. I hate that. I wish it's closed, you know. But I hate cooking. I hate, I don't go outside even eating from in restaurant in any places, you know. I just like my home food, you know. I don't like cooking. I don't like smell of the food. I don't.
Okay, I just want to make sure there still is going to be
No, but
cooking.
you know, anything we do, we are not going to do it without your approval, you know. Yeah, it's not even if you want to plant a tree, we're going to come back to you to approve that. We're going to plant that tree there.
Not the town board, but. Any other questions? Craig?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, excuse me for 1 second.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Craig Eckert, Deputy Town Supervisor. Just wanted to clarify on the planning board, what we discussed wasn't so much, I thought you had it right the first time, but hearing it a couple more times, wasn't unloading in the rear. It was on the north side of the building, which was the rear of the residences. That's what we were more interested in. There is pavement up to the north side, And that dumpster enclosure that's there now was remarked that was going to be moved to the south side, so we didn't want to see that entrance to the rear of the residence is being used as the loading area into the cooler area. So that's
Right.
one of the.
But I mean, also, my point is setback requirements for the rear of the property are different if there is rear loading versus if there isn't. So in this one, there's no rear loading, but you guys also dictated that you didn't want loading on the north side.
That's right. That was the comment that was stated. Okay. So I wanted to clarify that. I thought you had it right, but I wanted to make sure.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Becky, is there anything online?
There is not.
Then hearing no objections, I will close this public hearing. Again, like others, if we're going to rule on this one today, it's under a separate resolution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, hearing no objections, the public hearing to consider amending special permit 2020-007 for the White Arrow Service Station and Mini Mart, formerly Joe Legno's, to allow a revision to the footprint to include an 18 feet by 38 feet cooler is closed. That concludes our public hearings. Can I get my first resolution?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 5-54, 2021, to authorize bills payable for March 2nd, 2021 through today.
Second. I'll do it for you, Steve.
Thanks. I unfortunately flipped to the back page and didn't notice that. I know why I'm second, because it had to do with, there was one that I said I should be reading it. And so I'm sure that dictated the order. Anyway, thank you, Mike. I will also second. That way you don't have to change things. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Before I make this resolution, I'd just like to get the feel for, this is for the special permit that we just discussed. Whether we want to make the motion to approve or deny.
I'm fine with approval.
I'm fine with approving.
So basically, because we had wanted to hear all this stuff, we had written the approval, the resolution each way. So I'm going to read it with the approve, which is there are a number of things in the text itself that includes that basically indicates that we did not feel that this was significant and was consistent with the original approval. So that's the way I'm going to read it. Fellow board members, I have resolution 5-55, 2021 to approve a modification to special permit 2020-007 for a proposed expansion of the building footprint at 3333 East River Road.
Seconded.
So again, the reason I had it both ways is if we were going to deny it, I wanted it to be clear as to why we were denying it. Doesn't mean you still can vote. You don't have to vote for this, but I just wanted to put it in the way that it was more likely to go. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to ask Counselor to have our client make sure that he applies for a building permit before working over there. That's about it.
Kevin, has that been corrected?
I have it right here in front of me. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Want to thank him for cleaning up that property.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks much, much better.
Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So again, thank you. Again, try to be a little bit more mindful of the proper order of when you take out permits, do corrections, but also thank you very much for the work you and are doing on cleaning up the contamination that exists prior on the property. Obviously, anything we can do to clean up the environment is much appreciated.
Yeah, thank for you to give us the opportunity to do that, Without you, we can't do it,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ready?
Yep.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-56, 2021, to call for a public hearing regarding a local law to modify permitted and prohibited uses in industrial zoning districts.
Second.
Any discussion? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have 5-57, 2021 to designate the 5582 West Henrietta Road property as a historic site.
Am I the second on that?
Yes, you are.
Second.
So again, as noted, this approval is contingent upon the final authorization by the property owner. Any further discussion? Mr. Congan, if you're listening, I really hope you'll do this. It would be, as was noted by a representative from the Historic Site Committee, it would be a great addition to the West Henrietta Historic District that we're in the process of creating. It's a phenomenal property. You've done a great job in restoring it and keeping it up and beautifying it, and it really is a gem in the town. Anything online? Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 5-58, 2021 to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement for real property valuation services.
Second.
So we'd given this to Don to review. He had a couple changes he recommended. They haven't gotten back to us with those. So this is also basically contingent upon final approval from the town attorney. So, but the agreement you have is pretty close to final. There were just two minor things that Don wanted to see in there differently. So obviously, until Don says they've changed it to his satisfaction, I will not be executing this. Any other questions, comments?
So we're just giving you the authority to execute it, but it's not going to actually be executed until those things are completed?
Correct. Completed to the town attorney's satisfaction. Because it may not be exactly as he put it. There's often multiple ways to achieve what the protections he wants in there.
I know the best way, though.
He knows the best way.
So when will we know that it's been approved? How will we know it's been approved to satisfaction?
Don will send something out to the entire town board.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 5-59, 2021 to authorize the advertisement of bids for the sewer and drainage garage project.
Second. Any questions? Anything you'd like to add, Chris?
No, Mr. Supervisor, I'm all set. I think it's a great project, and it'll be certainly an asset to the town once it's done.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 5-60, 2021, to award the 2021 sanitary sewer and lateral repair project bid contract to I can never pronounce that one. Lamis Construction.
Seconded.
As we mentioned previously, this is actually over the budget that was for that particular project. We had made the conscious decision to do that because if we'd have stayed under the budget, we would have disturbed about 2/3 of the street this year and 1/3 of the street next year. We wanted to get it all done in one to minimize the impact on residents. We have, there is in the sewer budget every year, there is a contingency amount. So we will be dipping into that contingency. And as I said, when we do the budget next year, whatever we dipped into the contingency this year, we will put it back as part of the budget next year. It just made more sense to do it as one. There's some cost savings because it's one less activation and deactivation of the contractors. But the bigger thing is, again, we're trying to minimize the impact on the residents. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-61, 2021, to establish extension number 24 for the Forest View subdivision to the Henrietta Drainage District.
Second.
Any further discussion beyond what we had at the hearing? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So Mike, if you want to just propose that we table the next one, that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 5-62, 2021. To table the established extension.
So basically, you just would say, I propose that we table Resolution
Okay.
5-62.
I propose we table Resolution 5-62, 2021, to establish extension number 223 for the Forest Hill subdivision of the Henrietta Sewer District Number 1.
Second.
So again, we will be voting to table this. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have Resolution 5-63, 2021, to establish extension number 170 to the Forest View subdivision to the Henrietta Water District Number 1.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 5-64, 2021, to accept the dedication of roadways and storm sewers for Stonefield Muse subdivision.
Second. Any discussion? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 5-65, 2021, to authorize the purchase of a new EnviroSite pendant for the sewer camera.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
I'm still trying to get to the next one.
It's a long way away.
I know, I'm still going. It's like, where is it? Let me just read it from here. Where is it?
66, 5-66.
Oh, thank you. Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-66, 2021, to award the bid for the sewer camera inspection van to Joe Johnson Equipment.
Second.
Any discussion?
I got it.
What was that?
Am I reading? It says to award the bid, and then in the resolution, it says authorize the advertisement for bids to purchase. The first line.
No, the first line is saying, whereas we had a.
Oh,
previous
I'm sorry.
resolution
Yep, I
advertising.
just, sorry. Yep,
Yep.
you're right. Okay, excuse me.
It just basically says of that, after that advertisement,
So second.
these were the two lowest. Yep.
Sorry.
Any further discussion? I will note that it's another local vendor.
Yep.
I know that's important to a number of individuals here. So was the pendant as well. Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 5-67, 2021, to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So before we go on to these next three, I'd heard Councilman Barley express an interest in potentially not acting on these tonight because of the amount of new information that was received recently.
Yes, I need a little bit more time
Do other
for the
board
information
members feel the
digest
same?
it.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of
I agree with-
information right at the last minute.
Okay.
I agree.
So then.
Thank you.
Apologize to the developers, but the resolutions are going to be pushed to the next meeting. So we will not act on resolution 568, 569, or 570. Any other questions, comments about that? I don't know if the applicant is still online. Hopefully that's not creating a hardship for you.
Mr. Supervisor, we'll be all set. Just had to bail. I'm sorry. This is Tim Harris from Pass Row.
No problem. Okay, great. You don't have any between now and the next 2 weeks, you don't have a planning board meeting, do you?
No, we plan on submitting on the 14th of April for the May meeting for that.
Okay, just check, because one of the things.
Right.
We could potentially do seeker now and the other two, but if it doesn't help, if it doesn't affect their timing, I'd rather do all three, postpone all three. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, totally understood.
At least we got most of the work done for.
That's right. The 3 pagers. Okay, That concludes our resolutions. Are there any additional discussion items either from the board or from the public? Committee or miscellaneous reports?
I have just one thing. The nothing but bundt cakes. Looks like they're getting close to opening up down at the Market Square Mall on Jefferson Road. So a number of people have come to me and were very excited about that. They wish they made bread too. And they were also happy to hear about the Ninja place that was going to open up and be gluten-free. And I heard someone talking about the Caribbean African place that's going to be opening up where Jelly Belly used to be near Frontier. So a lot of good eateries coming in. Hopefully, they'll be very successful.
I believe Just Chicken opened up.
Did they?
So they have a, they have a kind of like a rotisserie Peruvian chicken. They have chicken wings. They have a bunch of different forms of chicken.
Okay.
Just chicken. No,
Just
they're also sides, but
Where was it?
that's over in Jefferson Plaza across from Southtown. And then also there is the Coffee Cooperative. I don't remember their full name, but they are moving into one of the open spaces in the food court at Marketplace Mall.
Oh, that's good.
So,
Haven't been in there in eons.
Been a while.
yeah. One of the other things in that regards, for anybody from we have an invitation from Wilmerite to do a tour for the board members as well as the assessors. If we want to get a look at what the state of the malls are right now. They are quite depressed. They weren't, there was already some hit because of the move to online retail, but they also took some additional hit because unfortunately the governor, in my opinion, treated them unfairly. The stores that were in plazas were allowed to open before stores that were in malls.
Yeah.
And that's one of those ones that it defies logic to me because either way I'm going indoors. To have said that you can't have any events in the malls, you can't have kiosks in the Central Mall area, that I would have understood. But to not allow the mall to open for those stores, that was unfair to the mall owners and not just Marketplace. A lot of malls took a hit because of that.
Well, and all the stores that are inside, absolutely.
Right. So, they're happy to show us what is happening with the conversion of a portion of the wing is going to U of R. The nice thing is that some of that area is being rented, and that's key because it stays on the tax rolls that way. They'll also show us, what they're looking to potentially do with some of the additional development. Per our discussions, they are in their mixed use development. They are going to identify Macy's as potential future industrial space, remembering that industrial includes office. Because that may be one of the uses. One of the things I pointed out, if they decide not to do that under it's currently commercial B1, so they can still do commercial, but this would allow them to also do industrial. And then they'll talk about what they're looking to do potentially with the space that they're looking to convert to, or potentially at a hotel once the medical centers opened up. They figure that that's a facility that is expected to draw people from outside the area to come and get orthopedic work done there because it will be so top notch. So they're looking at the potential of putting a hotel right off of the mall main. So they're happy to show us all that work. If you haven't been by there, there's gorgeous blue fence up now. That's the nicest looking construction fence I think I've ever seen around the U of R facility. So that is moving forward. They are working on the Sears wing, the Sears building, which will convert that to the actual surgical center. And then they are also, there's a staging area for all the steel as they start to erect the office towers. That's the clinic tower, I guess they call it, associated with that. So that's starting to move, which is really exciting because again, as the Wilmerite put it, we're hoping to make it through this period till that opens up, because once that opens up, you're talking thousands of new people visiting that mall every single day, which will help tremendously with getting folks back there. But there's no doubt these next 2 years are going to be rough. And again, that's true of malls all over, but especially here.
Yeah.
So
Very interested in seeing that.
Councilman Barley, I'd just like to circle back to the Nothing Bundt Cakes. Was out there today for a final, and they did receive their C of O.
All right.
I do not have a time frame when they're going to open, but soon.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson.
They were in there
Okay.
working today when I went by, putting a new door on. I was like banging on the window. Can I have a sample? And
Lisa was very excited when I mentioned Nothing But Bundt Cakes.
I am a dessert person. So.
other reports.
I don't know, somebody else got anything yet?
I've
Yeah.
got,
Go ahead.
oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to mention that the school district is looking to expand and open up a little bit more for their hybrid students. So right at the moment, they have sent out a survey for to all the parents that have students in hybrid. If you have more than one child that's in the hybrid program, please complete a survey for each child that you have. The survey has to do with transportation, because one of the biggest barriers for reopening the schools is transporting the kids and maintaining the appropriate amount of distance. So if there's parents that can contribute by transporting their children to and from school, that helps the district out tremendously. And I don't think I need to tell anyone here how significant it would be for the community to be able to open the schools up a little bit more and get the kids back.
And I do
In
know
person.
that the current bill in Congress does have some funding to help those schools reopen, including additional stuff for, like, if they need to improve filtration, things like that. So there is some, hopefully, money coming to help with that. As a parent of 2 teenage boys, I know we will happily drive our kids to school. Wonderful
Mine are gonna
kids.
walk.
That's right. They're wonderful kids, but boy, as teenage boys, I'm happy to get them out of the house.
Yeah. I love my granddaughters to go to school every day too. I mean, they're staying up a little bit too late. I think it's still summertime on their off days.
Well, we're just on the subject of school. I'll mention that I've been working with the Assistant Superintendent Andrew Whitmore to finalize the transfer agreements and stuff for the school. So our goal is to have it ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
One of the things we're looking to see whether from the sale agreement, if there might be an order of operation that one of the boards has to approve it before the other. So
Okay.
if that's the case, their board meeting is sandwiched between our workshop and our town board meeting. If the order of operation requires us to do the approval first, we'll do the approval at the workshop. If it's that they who have to approve it first, we'll do the approval at the town board meeting.
Perfect.
But I sent the stuff to Don. He and I haven't had a chance to talk on it because we were going through all of the resolutions that had to get fixed up for today, but that's hot on the agenda for tomorrow. Is they came back with, we've basically been going back and forth with some terms to essentially best protect each of the two, the town and the school district.
Not a CYA, huh?
Yeah, it's just, you know, again, as you start to, there's certain things that are important for us and there's certain things that are important for them. And so it's a bit of a negotiation. And the nice thing is, you know, again, Andy and I have a really good working relationship, and we've basically been able, you know, understand where each of the other is coming from, and we make concessions. But there are certain things that, you know, are essentially, I don't want to say deal breakers, but are really important to us. And so we've honored each other's really important things while conceding on the things that may be important to them, but not as important to us. So I fully expect that to be ready to go. Hopefully by the end of this week, we'll get that out for you guys to review. That way you'll have plenty of time to think about it for the next meeting.
Right. Good news.
And that's for those who are unaware what we're talking about. This is for the purchase of Good Shepherd
Great
for
news.
$1.
For the church and the farmhouse.
The church and the farmhouse, right? Yep. Lisa?
So the Henrietta Public Library, they're going to have new hours starting on Monday, in person and curbside. They want to remind people they're still doing curbside, which is awesome if you have children or you just don't want to go into the library. But the new hours will be Monday through Thursday from 10 to 8, Friday and Saturday 10 to 5. Adrian also wanted me to remind you about the Color Henrietta Green kickoff, which is on Thursday, March 18th. You're going to register for that at the library. And Donation Fridays, the second Friday of the month. If you have books that you want to donate to the library for the Friends and Foundation, you can do that. And then on the Henrietta Historical Site Committee, and Steve mentioned this tonight, they are very motivated to help you if you have a property that's a historical site property and you just want more information as to what it takes to do it, what you need to do, the benefits. I mean, reach out to them because they're awesome. Even if you're just not sure and you just have questions, reach out to them because they're a great group and they're really motivated to let people know what we can do to preserve our history.
If you're having trouble finding out how to contact them, feel free to send email to supervisor@henrietta.org and I'll put you in touch with them.
I missed, when do those new hours start? I missed that, the
I'm
start
sorry?
date. The start date for the library, when does the new hours start?
Oh, Monday,
Monday? Okay,
Monday, March 15th.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any idea when they're going to open the meeting rooms?
No,
Okay. Thanks.
baby steps.
Right?
Yep. So anyways, the Recreation Department, the town staff constructed a new ninja wall to add the obstacle course and gymnastics. Kids are enjoying that. Residents registration for the spring session of gymnastics and preschool playgroups opens up on March 22nd. That's registration. Registration is still open for the Easter Bunny Egg Craze on Saturday, March 27th and Sunday, March 28th. The event will be held at the Senior Center gazebo. You can meet the bunny, play games, and take eggs home to hold your own hunt. And details are on the website, or you can call the rec center at 359-2540. Registration for food link for the, that was actually.
It's tomorrow.
For tomorrow, yep, for tomorrow is full. There's another one scheduled for April 8th.
Let me just chime in. If you weren't able to register, you can still show up near the end. I must note that Food Link changed the hours because the last half hour was largely empty. So instead of 10 to 12, it now goes 10 to 11:30. So if you did not register and wish to show up to see if there are excess foods or they're, either due to, because sometimes the folks providing the food give us extra food and sometimes there are people who no-show. If you wish to do that, please show up around 11 o'clock. And again, that's in the Veterans Memorial Park. As soon as you come into the park, just continue straight back towards the playground. You'll see the signs.
So then finally, I have registration for the RH Kicking Hunger 5K. This is going to be done this year on June 5th, both virtually and in person. And it's in person on June 5th, excuse me, and virtually June 4th to June 6th. And all the proceeds go to RH Kicking Hunger Food Pantry. And so you can go to the website to register.
So I'll just mention, it was especially with respect to the, some of the stuff going on at the rec center, but also potentially at the library. I've gotten a couple inquiries as to whether we're going to modify our mask mandates based off of guidance from the CDC regarding the minimal transmission of COVID through children. The issue is that is still a state mandate that anyone over 2 years of age and medically able to do so must wear a mask in a public space. I know that the state legislature has removed the governor's authority to issue new emergency edicts. However, and I checked with the Monroe County Supervisors Association as well as with the county, no one is aware of that edict having been removed by the legislature. So it is still in effect. As with any emergency edict, it will have a sunset clause, but it was just renewed on February 25th. So if it was the shortest sunset clause there is, which is 30 days, it would be in effect through March 25th. So until that mandate goes away, we won't be reviewing our mask mandate with regards to facilities. So with that said, if that goes away, I would expect that we would still have it in place for adults, but for some of the children, if that is the medical guidance from both the CDC and from county health, that we would be willing to relax that again, if based off of the science. I will note that we will stay compliant with county, state, and federal requirements. So if the county decides that for Monroe County, we're going to keep that in place for anyone 2 years and older, then we will keep it in place for 2 years and older. Any others? Hearing no other reports, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
They're quick around here.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.